This is an ad, and I'm going to read the script. Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere, and earn more money. All in one place, for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right on your phone or computer. So no matter what your setup is like, you could start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify, optional. And when you want to take conversations with your fans to the next level, Q&A and polls are the best way to get them talking. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast sponsorships. Subscriptions, not sponsorships. Subscriptions, not sponsorships. Subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free. No catch. Ever since I discovered Spotify for Podcasters, insert testimony, I feel like having options like video. This is not my testimonial. My testimonial is that I love that I can just kick on my phone. Is that what I do? I kick my phone and it's on. That I can just lay in bed and I'm like, oh, I have an idea. And I could be under the covers and I can just start recording a podcast and talk about cheese for like 45 minutes and get all the money in the world. So I highly recommend you give it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app. Go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started.
This episode is brought to you by Liquid IV. When life gets busy, you grind, you push, you reach for a stick of Liquid IV powder. It hydrates you 2 times faster than water alone, so you can crush goals and your to-do list. Because real life is extreme enough. Real people, real flavor, real hydrating. Buy a stick in store or at liquidiv.com with the code podcast for 20% off your order.
This episode is brought to you by Sol de Janeiro. At Sol de Janeiro, touch isn't just for screens. Physical connection is so essential to how we communicate. It's infused in everything we offer. Scents so irresistible, PDA is guaranteed. Textures are so luscious, skin is huggable. Get into a Sol de Janeiro state of mind. Receive 10% off on your first order on soldejaneiro.com. Plus free shipping with the code SOLDEJaneiro10.
I don't have a plan for this episode other than I feel like I want to talk about continuing the story. Because I know for me, I feel like I'm in a place where I have really latched on to my personal identity and sense of self being really wrapped up in my woes, like my mental health story, my pains, my struggles, my mistakes, my traumas, my upbringing, all my disadvantages, insecurities, whatever you want to call them. I feel like I don't doubt that a lot of us have a bit of a fixation on the negatives of our stories. But man, have all of the adventures, all of the turmoil, all of the challenges, feels like it provides an opportunity to write something better. Now, I don't want to approach life as if there's a guarantee that everything will be a happy ending, at the end of the day. But I do feel like at some point I need to make a very conscious decision to realize that everything up to this point, every part of my story has been breadcrumbs for where my life ultimately ends up. And, whatever will be written on my tombstone, which I don't think will be that glamorous, honestly. Like, I think we have these grandiose visions of what someone will say at our funeral or put on our tombstone, and it'll probably be like some generic thing. Unless we write it ourselves. But I'd want to be able to write something myself that feels like there's a story there, that there is something to learn from or to at least get some entertainment or joy out of. uh, that's why I wrote my book, Happy Chemicals, a neurotic memoir, to kind of share some of the crazy stories. And I think I'm coming up against a wall of, needing to write new stories. It's a little scary in the sense that I've explored a lot of my history. I've mined it all for potential gold. I wouldn't say all of it, but for all the things I've really needed. And there's only so far you can go in terms of continually looking at the past to eventually step into your future and define what to do next. And some of it is just like remembering what it took to make memories initially anyway, right? Because you're young and you're growing up and you're just like doing things and responding to the world, reacting to the world, reacting to your own bodily impulses and needs and desires and wants, and you're just going towards things and you have convictions and you want to change the world or you want to punish the world or whatever, right? There's all these various feelings, all these various drives that are, making us go in a certain direction. And then at some point, I'm feeling I'm at this weird place where I want to renew a relationship to life and taking risks and going forward, but I also don't want to ignore the lessons that I've learned. And it's really easy, I find, for me to go through all of my lessons and feel like I don't want to do any of that again, and therefore feel kind of stale and stuck and stagnant and almost living out of fear of accidentally doing it all again, as opposed to stepping into the next chapter and using all of that as rocket fuel for what comes next. And I'm feeling personally this sense that there's this like foggy wall of what's next. Like I have no idea. There's something very exciting about that. And also because I don't feel, at least right now, I don't feel like there's momentum in any particular direction. It's like, am I actually moving towards something? Or am I just like in a holding pattern, right? Am I waiting for something to pull me towards something? Or is there somewhere I can go? I'm speaking kind of abstractly because I just don't know. This is a strange place to be in. But it's something to say about life and where it all goes. I think what I'm feeling is that there's potential redemption for my life story, that there's a lot of new possibility that can awaken to really be present with life and enjoy life and be in like communion with people and to be a part of something, not in like something bigger than myself, but just be like existing and being a part of life that is an invitation I've ever fully had before. I've sort of just landed in groups of friends. I've landed in stories and have, because of that drive I was talking about, just sort of landed into a lot of mess. And I want adventure without the mess, and I think I'm figuring out, or I'm not figuring out. I think I'm hesitant because I don't want more mess. But like, what is life if you're not making a mess, right? So this is a little paradox, right? Which is always a delightful thing to feel a sense of paradox. What a joy! And so I don't know what that means in terms of direction, but I think I'm speaking to the impulse to stop ourselves, and for me, the impulse to stop myself from feeling like I have more life to live, from feeling like my story is what it is and it'll always be that way. Like, I watched Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse recently, and that movie had a bit of a theme around, everyone's trying to tell me what my story is, and I'm going to do my own thing. And I think a part of my exploration of my life throughout this podcast and, personal journaling and all the growth stuff is a realization that, there is a bit of a predestiny that's part of our programming and our upbringing and our wiring and all of this stuff that may naturally hold us into a specific line of development or holding pattern or general direction, and that the path of individuation is like deciding that you can write your own story and do something different. And I think I'm on the precipice of that. I don't think I'm there, but I think that's what's coming, is that there's a next stage. There's more to my story yet to be written. There is there's more fruit to be mined. There's more, suckling at the teat of life to be had, so to speak. It's I'm not dead, and I don't know why I feel like. Sometimes I feel like I treat myself like I'm dead, or I'm dying, or I'm retired, or I'm too old. I'm definitely nowhere near too old. I feel like I've had this, there's a term, I don't know if it's called age dysmorphia, but there's something like that. It's not that I see my body or see myself as older. It's like in my mind, I feel like I'm older than I am. And perhaps it's having to have grown up pretty quickly. I talked about parentification. I've talked about, all of my aspects of my life story where I feel like I've had to grow up pretty quickly. And I'm always on this like self-growth kick, right? So it's like this constant feeling of racing towards maturity, which in essence is like racing towards death and racing towards being done. And that's a little bit of the paradox of like spiritual growth and personal development and all this stuff, is I think a lot of people pursue this sort of thing in an effort to feel this almost like orgasmic release of like constantly living in pure pleasure, which I don't think is impossible to reach based on some stories I've heard about spiritual leaders and stuff like that. But it's this paradox in that if that's what you want, that's not what you're going to get. and also there are varying degrees of people who reach certain levels of development who have just like immense shadows and such big, grandiose personalities that they still act on their own line of development, their own life story, their own history, their own emergence of who they are, whether that's personality related or life story related or where they grew up, the time period we grew up in, all of this stuff. Like that's part of being human, is owning the humanness of our humanity. And that means, that's why I say like continuing to write the story, because my impulse was initially to say that I'm going to write a new story or I'm going to rewrite my story, but like I'm not starting from scratch. I have a history. I have a life. I've had everything that I've been up to this point. Now it's like stories are written where different chapters are completely different from each other, and there's still maybe an intertwining theme. And I'm certainly curious about what that theme is going to essentially be. I don't know that I can define that now. I've had a friend recently ask me about, like, what archetype would you create for yourself that resonates with you in your life story? And I'm like, I have no idea. Lately, I've attached to the Hades archetype, but I don't know that that's, like, all of everything. I don't know. And even then, like, what does that mean going forward, right? So I think I'm having a little bit of uncertainty around, like, what's coming next. But also knowing that what I ultimately need to do is let go and lean in and stop trying to guide the direction of life, because I think all of the best stories are ones that say, this happened, and therefore this happened, and therefore this happened, versus this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. You know, it's more of like, you take steps, or you make a choice, or you make a leap, or you do something, and then the drama unfolds. You know, the drama of life unfolds. It doesn't necessarily have to be like negative drama, but things unfold, right? Instead of like, let's take this step, let's do this thing, let's do this thing, let's do this thing. And that's super boring, and I don't want that. So I'm definitely feeling this sense of, like, wanting a much more, I'm feel like a much more fruitful experience, and I feel like I'm getting out of the tunnel of the last 6 years of doing such intense inner work and trying to truly understand myself and trying to figure out what's next, to the degree that I'm like coming out of this tunnel, and I haven't seen daylight in a long time, and I'm rubbing my eyes, and I come out into like a forest or something, and I'm like, okay, where do I go? I haven't seen reality in 6 years. What do we do here? What's this? Like, all right, I guess I need to find some food. And I guess that's like kind of where I feel I am. There's a little bit of back to basics. And I think that's the tricky balance, right? Like, trying to find this beauty and grandiosity in going back to the basics, and then also not losing the lust for life, you know, and like lust in general, because, you know, you got to keep the marriage spicy. And, a joie de vivre for existence, and taking risks, and playing with my kids, and, continuing to evolve my, like, career direction, and, and not, like, saying I'm done with inner work, but, like, the heavy part's done. I have tools. I have the ability to go forward, and, it's this, the story feels like a this, then this, then this when I try too hard to define it. And I think that's ultimately what is the difference, is not trying to purposefully write a story, but to just start walking and see what happens. And there's just so much, and have a faith that there's so much, there's such abundance in life that the story will emerge as it needs to emerge, and trust in all that. So I don't know if there's anything to really take away from this episode, other than because I was just really talking about me and my story, as I tend to do. And I'll be honest, my wife is out of town, and I've been just like working and stuff, but I think I'm going a little crazy because I just like I'm feeling a little stuck in my routines and I want something new to do. But anything I think of new to do costs money, and I've spent too much money in the last month, so I need to chill with that. And so I got to give myself some variety. Got to take some new steps in new directions. And, I'll do a little bit of self-parenting in that sense of trying something new, changing up the energy. And then, if there's anything to take away from this, it's that whatever it is you feel like your story has been, that is not the thing that necessarily defines who you are, especially if you've got a lot of life still to go, It's really easy to feel shame. I think shame pervades a lot of my story, mental health-wise, suicidal ideation, my relationship with women, sex addiction. Like, there's just a lot that I fixate on that feels like failure after failure after failure. But ultimately, that's the credits have not rolled yet. I'm still here, and there's still lots to do, and there's still lots of room to grow, and still lots of places to go. Okay, I think that's it. I don't really have anything I want to promote. So you can check the link on the website if you want. Leave a comment and ask a question if you want, maybe. And leave a review on the Apple Podcast thing if you like listening to me talk, because that'd be cool. Though I'm not really trying to make this like a fancy, famous podcast anymore. Though I appreciate that I still see like the analytics and I see that people are listening from all over the world. And if you're just listening to just like have someone to listen to talk to, like to listen to talk, like I'm grateful for that. Because there are contexts where we don't get the opportunity to just like say what we want to say and have someone fully hear us. And while you're not here in front of me, nodding and smiling or drawing while, like my wife tends to draw while I'm talking. And I kind of imagine that kind of scenario. And we're just hanging out, like sitting on the porch and talking. Like, that's the vibe, right? And I want more of that in real life. And I know that just like, for a lot of us, that's not the case. So being able to provide that as the person not only making this, but as you as an active listener and participant in, listening to me talk to just fill time or feel connected, or maybe you like my voice or something, like any of that, I'm grateful to feel like I'm, a broadcaster just throwing stuff into the ether and there's another ear listening. So thanks for that. I appreciate you. And I'll talk to you next time. See ya.